Hey everybody, my name's Christian, and today we're going to make our first map with Therion. So, online and in the description below, you'll find a link to a GitHub page which has my Therion template in it. If you want to use it, you can come here, click code, and download the zip file. Once you've done that, then you will open up and find all of these files in here. And this is pretty much everything you need to compile your first Therion map, or at least play around with it. So what's in here are three of the master files and two template or configuration files that are for how things look. So the master file here is this yourcavehere.th. That is the Therion file. Then you have the cavesketch.th2 file, and that's the file that actually holds your scrap within it, or your little sketch. And then you have a compile file, which is going to take all of this data. It's going to take your master data file, it's going to take your sketches or your scraps, and it's then going to apply the symbology to those, and then you will come out with a final map. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to hop into this .th2 file and look at our cave sketch. In here, I have a paper file, and it is from a cave in Kentucky, and you can see when I click on this grayed out line that it has a set of lines and little dots that are over the main sketch. This is a vector-based program, so basically all of these lines and dots are just sort of arbitrary points in space, but they are assigned different types like wall or floor meander that when we apply the symbology to at the end, it's going to make these look really different. It's going to make them look a lot nicer. So to make something like this, we're going to first get rid of that, create a new file, and this is just gonna be a test one, so we're gonna name it something ridiculous, and then we're ready to go. So to get the paper sketch in, which you wouldn't have to do normally if you use TopoDroid, but we're gonna just, for the sake of it, we're gonna click Insert over here within the Background Images tab, and we're gonna click on our paper sketch. Then we're gonna come on down here and look at this. And now we need to start making our first scrap. When I moved around here, that was me pressing the right mouse button, just FYI. And then if I wanted to move the scrap around within this image, I can double click this, and that actually moves the scrap around. Or the, not the scrap, the background image. So now I need to create a scrap, which is the fundamental unit of our survey data, and that's called scrap1. And that's going to be fine for this. I believe in the master file, I call it scrap plan. But the way that I like to do this is usually identify them as like trip21 underscore scrap1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because then it's easier to just find them and go back to them when you need to debug something. But now that we've made the scrap, the next thing we need to do is identify the survey stations. So we're going to come up here in the top right, and we're going to click this dot button. And what that does is it lets us insert a new point. I could also hit Control P instead. Then I'm going to hover over our F29 station and click. And that will generate a point, and this orange triangle indicates that it is a station. I could also, I could make it a volcano, I guess, but we don't want that. We want it to be a station, and then we need to say it's station F29. So we're going to type -name and then F29. And then we can just go and click all the rest of these, and we'll do it in order. So when I click this, if I look over on the right, this comes in as F30, F31, 32, 33, nice and easy. And if we wanted to skip one of those, I could actually go back and delete F30, and this would still work. It would still import into my map. The reason that we put the stations in here is because of after I make this scrap, what Therion is doing in the master file is it's taking this scrap and it's morphing it and putting it onto our line plot and then attaching all the walls together. Now that we've done the stations, we want to do the walls. So I'm going to either click this button up here, or I'm going to hit Control L, and I'm going to look over here in this table. It's going to say lines, wall. So I know I'm making a wall right now, and I can insert the line point in red down at the bottom. And then I'm just going to click and do all of these walls. When I'm doing this, I'm kind of clicking and holding because of it allows me to make it a curved line. If I don't do curves, see how it's very jagged like that? But if I do, if I click and hold, I can actually do these rounded walls. And I find that if I just click and drag just a little bit, every time I click a point, it makes a nice smooth wall. When I'm doing these walls, I draw them counterclockwise. And the reason I do that is so that Therion knows where the inside of this scrap is. Therion needs to know where the cave is and the cave isn't. And the way it does that is by looking at your wall, and if you look here where my cursor is, that yellow line is pointing towards the inside of the passage. And when it's the inside of the passage, then Therion knows how to correctly join different cave passages, or it knows how to clip things. One of the things that it does is that if I say I want to draw this pit over here, well, I'm going to hit Control L and start drawing this pit, which is actually coming in as a wall. I don't want that. I'm going to change that to a pit. We'll see how I went outside of the wall over here. We don't want that. But it doesn't really matter because Therion is actually just going to clip that. So you can go out, you can, color outside the lines, and it's no big deal. So I'm going to go and do some of the rest of this. So I'm going to hit Control L, and I'm going to do this floor meander here. You see, I kind of tend to draw, and then I come up in the top right, and I click when I need to change what tool I'm using. So that's a floor meander. So I'm looking for that and clicking it. And then I'm going to hit Control L again, and that's going to make a new line. I'm going to do this floor meander. I'm going to hit Control L again. I'm doing another floor meander, yada, yada. Going back to this pit, I almost forgot. So that line there, that's important, not just for the walls, but also for symbols that are not symmetrical. So this, of course, has the dashes on one side. Well, thankfully, the dashes aim the same direction as that yellow line. So that's pretty easy to remember. The ceiling steps, the ceiling ledges are, I think they're the opposite. I can't remember. Sometimes I have to, I usually just do this in TopoDroid where it draws it automatically, but that would be a ceiling step in TopoDroid terms. So that's all using the Control L, but I can also do the point symbol or Control P, and just like my stations, instead I can make those debris. And you can see I chose to do debris, or I chose to type that in and not find it in the drop-down, but that's just because I know it already exists. So those come in just as these dots. Now I want to draw some of these rocks, so I'm going to hit Control L, and I'm going to draw the border of the rock like this. And then that rock there, it is going, I want it to actually close, but I'm not going to click over there. I'm going to hit this close button that makes it, it completes that loop there. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to draw the rock edge, and I'm going to hit Control L, and now I'm going to use the rock edge symbol, and that's just going to make the rock look nice and pretty. Looking back, I realized that I did not remember to change this to a rock border when I typed that in, or when I drew that in, but that's fine. So I just go over and change it to rock border. Easy as pie. Now, here's my mostly finished scrap. I'll check one last time and make sure that, yep, my walls are pointed in the right direction. If they weren't, I could hit the reverse button to swap the direction they're going, but they are. So now it's time for me to come out of this and go over to my master file where I'm going to actually identify this scrap and attach it to the line plot. So I'm going to hit either F1 or I'm going to go up to Window and go to the text editor. So now I'm in the text editor, and I'm going to click the Open button, and I'm going to open that master file, which I have named yourcavehere.th. Within this master file, you can see that I've identified that I'm going to create a survey called default survey for default cave. I'm going to input that .th2 file that I just made. So I'm importing the sketch with all those scraps, or with that one scrap that I did. And then I have a center line here. And what that center line is my survey data. If I didn't want to use the Therion survey management like this, I could instead just import a PLT. So I would just type in import and then in quotes, line plot.plt, and it would just have the PLT would just have to be into this folder. But that's how I have that's how I bring all of my data in, my scraps or my sketches and my survey. And then down here, this is where I'm actually going to kind of build the map. So what I'm doing is I'm going to say here, make me a map that is called the default plan map with the projection plan. And then I need to add all those scraps in. So I need to know the names of the scraps. If you remember, I have scrap plan. And because I'm outside of this survey, see how I have it says end survey and survey here? I'm outside of the default survey. So when I bring in that plan, I need to make sure that I'm referencing the survey that it's in. So that plan is actually in this default survey because the default survey has the input sketch.th2 within it. So hopefully that wasn't too many words, but yeah, I basically just make a map and pull the scrap into it. Okay, so now I have a survey and I have maps and they're ready to be compiled. So I go to the compiler. I can click Window and then Compiler, or I can click F3. And then I want to open up my compile file. This is where you would type in source and then yourcavehere.th. If you have a different .th file name, then you want to change it. But pretty much within this file, this is going to be all you need to change just to make a map. So you can go ahead and just click compile, and it's going to say running and hopefully not throw any errors. And then turn green in just a moment. And you can see all the data right in here. It says some of the survey data in here, and it tells you that everything went good. Then you're going to go into here and open the output folder, and then you have a bunch of files in here that this will automatically generate. I don't know how it generates a projected profile if there was no profile scraps given to it, but we'll open up the working plan, and the working plan has our kind of bad sketch and line plot on it, and it looks a lot better than it did over here in the in this survey. So now you have just created your first Therion map. So you say, okay, well I want to maybe do something a little different in there. Let me go back to the compiler, and we'll say, okay, I think that scale was too small. These debris symbols aren't looking good. Let's make this scale 1 is 400, and then I'm gonna hit compile, or I can also just hit F9 and start to compile this again. I could also do other things in here, like change where the header is. This grid size stuff is usually for if you're making a profile, it's not showing up in ours here. I can change the color of the map background. I could turn the legend off. There's a bunch of stuff I could do in there. And that finished, so now we go and check out the plan, and now it is in a different scale. So you can see how it changes there. It's really easy to mess with. Now you're saying, well, heck, I wish I didn't have the line plot on there. This is my final map. You scroll down and you can see I've made a bunch of different layout type things in here. You scroll down to here and this is everything that's actually being exported. So this hashtag means that line is commented out, so it's not going to work. But I go to PDF map exports and I say, okay, well I want a clean plan, but that's commented out right now. So how about I just delete that comment? And I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to say, oh, well, I don't need this working profile. I don't really have a scrap for profiles yet. So I'm going to say we don't need that. And then I'm just going to go and hit compile again. And I'm going to go back to my output folder, and I'm going to wait a second for this to compile. And now that that's compiled, I should have the clean plan. Now, when I go into here, I've got a map that doesn't have a line plot in it. So I have both, though. I can go to my working plan or my clean plan, and I can swap things around. I could have changed the map background color. I could change the symbology. I can do lots of stuff with that one map to change the way it looks, and it's just that easy. So that's how Therion works, everybody. You take a scrap, you put the scrap into the master file, you combine it with the survey data into a map, and then you bring that master.th file into your config file or your compile file, and you hit compile, and you make a beautiful map. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps.